Please welcome to the stage your host and MC for tonight, Nisreen Shems, AVP Business Development.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our fourth Mississauga Cybersecurity Forum, Navigating the Future of Cyber Resilience, Innovation, Intelligence, and Integration. I'm Nisreen Shems, the AVP of Business Development at Stratagem, now a Bell Canada company. Our mission at Stratagem is very clear: to be the first call for enterprises seeking trusted, cutting-edge cybersecurity solutions. Today's theme, Navigating the Future of Cyber Resilience, is more relevant than ever. When discussing cyber threats today, we're no longer battling just human hackers. The battlefield has shifted. We're now confronting highly sophisticated algorithms, machine learning, and AI-powered bots. These threats are faster, adapt quicker, and can strike with unprecedented precision. Cyber resilience, therefore, is no longer just about keeping pace with human attackers. It's about outsmarting autonomous, self-learning opponents that never sleep and never tire. The mission of this forum tonight is to fundamentally rethink our cybersecurity strategies, spark new ideas that move us forward, and find solutions that make us stronger as the threats keep evolving. It's my honor to kick off the program tonight with our keynote speaker. For anyone who is a security leader, a cyber enthusiast, or just here trying to make more sense out of the cyber domain, I suggest you listen very closely to our next speaker. Very closely. Former Deputy CISO and VP of Global Security at Scotiabank, a security veteran who has helped reshape the defense landscape for over 25 years. Everybody, please join me in welcoming to the stage, Rob Knobloch.
Hello, hello. Can everyone hear me okay? Yes, thumbs up. All right, awesome, awesome. Well, it is a very big honor to be here today. I know John and Stratagem for over 2 decades now, and he's one of our business leaders that really does care about Canada and our cyber resilience. And I've never met a client that has not been happy with Stratagem, or even his previous company, CyberClicks, for those of you who go way back. But again, John, thank you very much, and the Stratagem team for inviting me today. My name is Rob. I've been doing this for about 25 years. Couple of companies, so Bank of Montreal, Scotiabank, Tangerine, the Toronto Stock Exchange, but always in the area of cybersecurity controls and active defense. But I'm here to talk about cyber resilience, which is different than cybersecurity. Well, what does resilience actually mean to you? And when I think about resilience, I actually think about exercise. I think about going to the gym every day. And what are the benefits of going to the gym every day? Well, going to the benefits of the gym every day are things like you're going to get sick less. You're going to have the mental capacity to deal with more bullshit in your life, just because your body is very intertwined into your mind. Now, when I look at controls from a cybersecurity perspective, when I reflect on exercise, you need running shoes to run. You need a yoga mat and a block to do yoga. If you're really into it, you do things like BCAAs and creatine and supplements. A lot of these are, in a way, controls, a way to mitigate the risk of you hurting yourself from exercise. So let's compare the difference between cybersecurity versus cyber resilience. First slide, please. Here we go. So when I look at cybersecurity, is really the active runtime protection of your organization. So these are things like your firewalls, your threat intelligence programs, your vulnerability assessment stuff, your DLP controls, stuff that mitigates the risk of bad things happening on a day-to-day basis. Putting a server unpatched without a firewall or a WAF on the internet, really scary. Putting those security controls to mitigate the risk so that device can run in operations, very important and very prudent from a cybersecurity practitioner's perspective. So resilience is really about these controls already in your organization, and how does your organization have a culture to withstand the bad things from happening, that black swan event, that storm from coming to your ship? Well, let's pick on NIST, because everyone here is familiar with NIST, I hope, and if you're not, please look it up, because that's really, in my opinion, one of the default fundamental standards of the frameworks. We have ISO 27001, if you're looking at a SOC 2 thing, if you're looking at CSUB, all of them you can root and find a way to map it into NIST controls. I have a clicker here somewhere. If I don't, then next slide, please. So, what does NIST say? And I'm not going to read this verbatim, but really what NIST is focusing on, once I turn this page, is around the ability to anticipate and withstand and recover from cyber attacks. Preparing for the worst, expecting the best, but again, bad things will happen, and they do happen. It's usually on Friday afternoon when you want to go home, and a media thing around Log4j comes out. Oh, that's the worst. But anyways, and you're working all weekend. But anyhow, cyber resiliency isn't just about controls. It's about culture. It's about those business processes. And a lot of the cybersecurity frameworks really stop at business strategy. And as security practitioners, if you want to get money for your funding, for your cyber controls, it's around embedding them into those business strategies and enabling the business to go faster. Those controls are the brakes of the car. When we look at cyber resiliency systems that have security measures or safeguards built in, so security by design, resiliency by design, your online banking system, your key milestone website, is it spread across a content delivery network like a Cloudflare with a WAF, or is it sitting on-prem with a 1T1 pipe coming in from Bell? Think about exactly the business priority. So NIST is a great framework, and I definitely follow NIST on pretty much everything I do. But to tell you the truth, there's actually a better resiliency framework out there. And it came in July of 22 from the World Economic Forum and Accenture. Next page, please. It's the Cyber Resiliency Framework, and there is actually a quantifiable method to create the Cyber Resiliency Index in your organization. And there's roughly, 6 principles on this. And the 6 principles are really self-explanatory, and if you want to read this, there's a link below, but you can also just Google World Economic Forum Cyber Resiliency Index, and you'll get a beautiful PDF document which just has this in detail. In fact, I stole this picture from that document. Really what it talks about is the culture, and to me, it's really around in getting culture from the top down to the employees, not just the phishing exercises and measuring the click-through rates, but encouraging employees to understand, well, what happens? And also making sure you have the right controls for the right employees. It's not one size fits all. You have some employees who have access to that AP or AR system. They maybe should have different controls than the one who's like the teller or the admin assistant with no access to sensitive data. Yeah, let them have Facebook. So then we have to regularly assess and prioritize your cyber risk. And to me, the biggest thing that organizations stumble on is identifying what systems are theirs. Not just on their own data centers, but across the vastness of the internet. What is your digital signature, your digital footprint? External attack surface management tools is another kind of area on this. And we see a lot of organizations using tools like Security Scorecard and BitSight and taking that EASM concept and applying it to the entire supply chain. That's brilliant. And understanding which part of your supply chain really has the ability to impact your operations. Incorporating cyber resilience governance into the business strategy. So here's where you're working with your business leaders, whether it be legal, HR, the CTO, the various business leaders in your organization, depending upon what your organization is, and say, well, how can I help you? Not the other way around in terms of, well, here's the security controls that you need, but in terms of, okay, you want to process PII data. Oh, you want to start processing payments. Oh, you want to start doing this. You want to start using AI and start using these models. Here's how we can create the guidelines and the frameworks, and they're looking for you to solve these problems for them. They don't want to be experts in this stuff. So again, working with trusted partners, handling the basic hygiene, looking at resiliency, really key. Ensuring the design supports cyber resilience. We used to have this thing called something called a /dot effect, and there actually was a website called /.org, which still exists. And what a /dot effect was when a website was really popular and a lot of people went to that website at once, and it crashed the website. It was called a /dot effect. About, 5 years after that moniker happened, started people calling it a denial of service attack. And same type of concept. You're flooding a website with HTTP requests and the website goes down. It's a very simple kind of concept. So then we had the birth of content delivery networks, things like Akamai, Cloudflare, Rackspace. It's beautiful, actually. And the ability to take your website and spread it across the internet to withstand these type of attacks. And companies like Netflix and the cloud providers also followed suit. This type of resiliency is amazing. But what happens when that one cloud provider goes down? What happens when CrowdStrike has a patch that doesn't really go so well? Or Microsoft Office 365 decides to take a nap that day. And it's never on a Friday afternoon, unfortunately. It's always like Monday, and everyone's like, well, when are we going to get this back up? So picking your resiliency and your partners is really important. One of the things that helps with this is actually tabletop exercises. And everyone's like, well, the tabletop exercises are expensive, and there are tools out there like Immersive Labs and Orna that do a great job at technical tabletop exercises. But also, whatever happened to just sitting around a table and saying, what happens if the company had ransomware across the entire company? Which systems do we bring up first? What's the biggest priority for us? Who makes the decision to pay a ransom? Like really basic fundamental questions, which are not technical at all, but aligned to the business strategy. And it's amazing when you do these exercises, the first time is usually a mess, to be quite honest. And, you know, people have conflicts and difference of opinions, and then you do it again and again. And like a military drill, you get better at it, you get faster at it, and you're building that resilience. So when the real incident happens, and to be quite honest, I've never seen anyone follow a detailed playbook. What I have seen people say is, oh yeah, we had this type of problem, and here's how we handled it. And that's the kind of muscle memory that really goes far in an organization. So I guess the last part is encourage systematic resilience and collaboration. So this is around improving the ecosystem and looking at your security tools, or maybe not, looking at your service providers to handle that problem for you, to be quite honest, because it is complicated to pick the right tool and interoperate and integrate the right tool and look at the AI roadmap developments of each of your cybersecurity controls, where you can get a managed service offering, which is why a lot of SMBs are moving in this space, because it is actually really super complex. And the resiliency is better, but then again, check how your service provider is providing that resiliency. What are the controls that they have to make sure that they stay in business? Because to be fair, MSPs are a massive target, because if you hit one MSP, you get multiple clients. You hit one service provider, SolarWinds, you get multiple clients. So again, look at your resiliency strategy. What is important to your business and what isn't important? Next page. And back to mapping. So the cyber resiliency framework introduced by the World Economic Forum can be mapped into various different types of frameworks from both NIST and CISA, and foreign best practices such as oil and gas in the MITRE ATT&CK framework. And again, I really recommend, if you're looking at cyber resiliency as a different measure and metric from cybersecurity within your organization, I strongly recommend the WEMF framework and looking at it that way. My name is Rob Knobloch, and I don't know if that was 10 minutes, but I kind of talk fast, and thank you very much for your time. Do you do questions or anything like that? Well, does anyone have any questions? Really? All right, thank you very much for your time, everyone. Cheers.
Thanks, Rob. We really value your time. I know you're a busy guy and out and about there. So I want to make a special call out to Rob's dad, Roland. Thanks so much for joining us today as well. All right, our next feature presentation is going to be by Diego Ramirez, the manager of cyber intelligence at Stratagem, as well as Simran Theti. She's a SIM use case architect at Stratagem. Their topic today will be on the power of security as a service, Stratagem's approach to innovation, detection, and response. Everyone, please help me welcome Diego and Simran to the stage.
Thank you, Nisreen, and thank you, everyone, for the warm introduction. My name is Diego Ramirez. I'm the manager at the Cyber Intelligence Center at Stratagem, a Bell Canada company.
And I'm
I'm Simranjot Teti, a same use case architect at Stratagem.
And this presentation is the power of security as a service, Stratagem's approach to innovative detection and response. A little bit about myself. I'm a mechatronics engineer, and I'm also a specialist in industrial automation and cybersecurity and computer forensics. I've been in the IT industry for approximately 10 years, and I've been with Stratagem for the last 3 years. My main responsibility is to provide guidance to the cyber intelligence analysts that work with our clients on day-to-day operations and that support our clients' environments.
And for me, I have been with Stratagem for about 7 years. It's been quite a journey. I started as a night shift analyst and then moved into a primary analyst role where I was monitoring a high priority customers. Then I transitioned into our Cyber Intelligence Center's team lead role, where I was coordinating day-to-day activities, training our analysts, and acting as a main point of contact. And now my current role is focused on developing and creating multiple use cases, which are designed where we create the rules, logics, and the filters, so that we can protect our customers to prevent from security controls.
Now, before we even start talking about the power of security as a service, we would like you to understand what are the challenges that we're facing in this industry, right? And not only in this industry, in all other industries out there that perhaps need to use cybersecurity services. The first challenge is the complexity of the security infrastructures. As you know, we're no longer in the business of logging only endpoints and network devices out there. We need to include cloud applications, we need to include OT devices, IoT devices, and any other cybersecurity solution that integrates with each other to provide the security to the organizations, right? The threat landscape is rapidly evolving as well. So with the rise of Gen AI tools, the hackers have a lot more tools now to be able to harm the organizations, right? So this is making it a little bit more difficult for us in order to come up with the best strategies possible.
And one of the other challenges that we face is the lack of efficient log correlations. Because of that, we get a lot of false positives, which creates the alert fatigue in our security teams and delays their response to detect the threats in their environment. And overall, to resolve for these challenges is to have the need for real-time incident response and containment. With the help of automated playbooks, it helps us to detect and mitigate the threat right at the beginning.
So where do we start? We start from the Cyber Intelligence Center at Stratagem. So this is a state-of-the-art facility which is SOC 2 Type 2 compliant that supports our clients on a daily basis, 24/7 and 366 days of the year for those who are aware of the extra day, right? Now, we go through a continuous improvement process in detection and response. As I mentioned before, we are a compliant facility, right? That means that all our employees are cleared by the government of Canada. That makes us to be a lot more prepared in order to deal with data that is perhaps critical, private, and confidential. Our team ensures that there is rapid response based on the fact that the threat landscape is evolving every day. And what makes us different is basically the process of quicker and more accurate detection responses that include an action to any threats that perhaps are or potentially could harm our monitor environments.
And further to add on Diego's point, what makes us different is our ability to create custom use cases which are according to our customer's environment. And also using our enhanced detection and response techniques, automated workflows. It helps us to enhance that our workflows are enriched and streamlined with the perfect process where we can help our organizations. And now let's take a look into our innovative approach. The way we start with is our visibility. The first step is to collect all the logs. You need to make sure the logs have been collected from all of your security tools, such as your servers, your network devices, or your applications. Next is to enrich the data. By leveraging the threat intelligence, the data is enhanced and analyzed against real-time threat feeds, vulnerability insights, where we can provide the further comprehensive analysis.
The next step will be investigating for anomalies. So we're no longer reporting on a single incident that has triggered perhaps on an endpoint detection and response tool. We're looking for anomalies in the environment. We're looking for behaviors that could be related to something broader. And finally, the last step will be eliminating the threat. That means it closes the loop between the detection and the response or eradication of the threats in the environments, right? Now, our approach includes the application of what we call smart alerts. So a smart alert is it's an automated response to a threat of that it's perhaps or will be perhaps harming the organization's critical assets. So the smart alert starts from the requirements gathering process. So we go and we understand what are the business needs of the companies, of the organizations that we are monitoring, and we start creating and we start building first the enrichment of the data, and then the response that will contain the threat before it can damage the organizations. We go through the process of designing and testing these use cases, and the SIEM use case development team, which is the team that Simran is responsible for, puts these or works with these rules in our development environments before they can go on production and before they can be tested in real-time scenarios.
And now we move into our implementation and monitoring phase. After our use case is tested, we deploy it in our customer's environment, where we try to monitor the behavior. Does it triggers true positive alerts or false positive alerts? While we are monitoring that, we also make sure the process of our smart alerts is working efficiently, which means that our incidents are being enriched with the proper details, such as the source IPs or the users that have been affected, as well as taking the appropriate containment actions, which would be blocking an IP address or resetting the password. And finally, after the implementation, we move into continuous feedback and enhancement phase. This is where we continue to work with the customers. So now we tune the use cases based on our customers' feedback, because all the environments are different. So we make sure that they are properly observed, the trends in our customers' environment, and then we tune the rules. And finally, this helps us to maximize the efficiency of our rules, and we make sure that we continuously keep on updating our rules, because as the evolving threat landscape, we need to make sure the rules, logics, and thresholds are always updated and with the relevant threat landscape. So now let's take a look into 3 essential use cases. We categorize this as securing the system, securing the network, and securing the user. So let's take a look into our securing the system. In here, we monitored the multiple detections on EDR, which is endpoint detection and response, which may suggest there is a malware outbreak. Now, in here, if there is a single block detection on your EDR, is not something that you would have an immediate response to it. But if there are multiple detections, it will indicate, or it may indicate there is a lateral movement in the environment, which requires the immediate containment action. So in this, our playbooks will initiate, and it will contain the host right away and will prevent the further exposure. And next, in securing the network, in here we leverage our threat intelligence, where we monitor the traffic, if there is a traffic going in or out from a customer's environment through a malicious IP. Let's take example, it's a command and control IP. The moment we trigger the permitted IP, permitted traffic from a malicious IP, this will trigger our playbooks and will contain the threat right away by blocking the IP address and isolating the host. And finally, looking into securing the user, this helps us in terms of detecting the multi-factor authentication is being disabled. As we all know, multi-factor authentication is a very critical part of our lives now. But at the moment, we see there is being disabled on the user's account. This is where it requires our attention, as it can indicate there is a security gap, there is an abuse of elevated privileges, or the user account is actually compromised. So again, like before, this will trigger our containment playbook, and it will make sure that the user is disabled, the MFA is re-enabled for the user. And after all these actions, our CIC team, which is with our analyst, helps us to do the further analysis to see if there has been any further exposure where they perform the full audit on the user and see if there has been any further exposure. And overall, these are the few 3 smart alerts that we would recommend you guys to have it deployed on top of your existing use cases.
Now, all of these wouldn't be possible without the effective application of our cybersecurity mesh architecture, the same architecture that Gartner predicted back in 2021. Gartner said that all companies that wanted to have a proper security posture should have something similar to this. Guess what? Stratagem has been doing this for the last 10 or 12 years, and this is the reason why we believe we are ahead of the game. We are putting we are integrating all the technologies that exist in the ecosystem of cybersecurity tools and technologies with each other, and we are not only detecting the threats in real time, but also containing them before they can harm the organization. It's not the same letting an attacker play around with your network for 2, 3, 4 hours than letting an attacker playing with your network for 2 minutes, right? There's nothing much they can do in 2 minutes. So as you can see in this slide, your SIEM tool, for example, will be detecting potentially some devices that are looking suspicious, right? That are showing abnormal behaviors. Now, since it's integrated with your endpoint and detection response tool, the cybersecurity mesh architecture powered by the SOAR, or the security orchestration and automation response tool, will make sure that all the threats are basically contained before they can damage the organization. We are reducing what we call the mean time to detect. We are reducing what we call the mean time to contain those incidents.
And to conclude the power of our security as a service, we at Stratagem, we provide a unified, comprehensive security as a service, where we integrate all the tools, just like Diego showed in the previous slide, where we have SIEM, EDR, threat intelligence, all integrated together to provide the seamless protection across your infrastructure. And also, because of our ability to create and develop the use cases tailored to our customers' environment, it ensures us the proactive threat detection and early incident responses.
Now, we're also giving our clients an enhanced security posture. This basically strengthens their overall security measures in order to, as I mentioned before, reduce false positives, reduce the alert fatigue, and enhance or improve the performance of the overall security that the company may have. And finally, we are giving our clients a faster incident response, right? How do we do that? Well, we leverage not only our cybersecurity mesh architecture, but also our GenAI feeds that will help us make decisions in near real time in order to reduce the risk of an incident potentially becoming a security breach. That will be it. Thank you so much for attending this presentation. And if you guys have any questions, any concerns, feel free to reach out to us after this session.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. I think that was the first time I saw both of you outside of the CIC. It's nice in my 3 years of being here, so great job on that. Thank you. The next speaker I'd like to introduce is Shang Xin. He's the Global Partner Solutions Engineer at Illumio, a leader in zero trust segmentation. Shang brings deep expertise in solution architecture, product integration, and building resilient infrastructures. His talk is titled Unified Security Zero Trust Segmentation, and will showcase how Illumio's platform delivers visibility, segmentation, and containment across diverse environments. Everybody, please help me welcome to the stage Shang Xin.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me. Thank you, John and the Stratagem team. We're glad to be here. I still remember the last time I was in Toronto. It was actually before COVID. It was in February in one of our tech summits. At the time, I was at VMware, and it was freezing. So this is great weather for me. Thank you so much for having me back. So zero trust segmentation. It really is about reducing the attack vector and containing the breach when there is a breach. It's not when, it's not if, it's when, right? So let's talk about that a little bit. So as I mentioned, someone turned it off. Let's see. All right. As I mentioned, COVID-19, that was the time that a lot of our customers actually were forced to take the digital transformation journey. You know, a lot of us were working from home. I still remember I was down in Texas at the time, so it wasn't too locked in. We were still able to, you know, get out of the house, but all the work was remote. Travel had stopped. You know, all the flights. You know, I was actually getting ready for a nice trip to Western Europe, and all of that got canceled. Any case, who led your digital transformation? This is actually from Forbes.com. There's just kind of a meme that went around social media. COVID-19 kind of triggered the digital transformation. As we know, of course, most of our CIOs and CEOs are looking at digital transformation and have actually went beyond that. So in the past 2 years since COVID, 76% of organizations were attacked by ransomware, and every 11 seconds, there's a ransomware attack. Can you guys believe that? I can believe it, right? Because we're just seeing so many of these breaches and so many attacks that's going on. So it's pretty scary out there. And it takes an average of 277 days to identify and contain a breach. So for those of you that are in the security business, you certainly know a lot of the hackers, they'll release some zero-day exploits. They'll go ahead and sit dormant for weeks, months, right? And it doesn't, they're kind of just observing, when should I attack, right? And then when they do attack, it happens, right? So, so a lot of times you don't usually identify the breach until it happens when it's too late, right? 25% of malicious attacks will have some negative impact, right? It'll actually halt system operations. So average cost of data breach, $4.45 million, very, very significant, right? Even for a small, medium business, we're still talking about tens of hundreds of thousands, right? And these are US dollars, by the way, right? So certainly very expensive. So here in Canada, as well as in the US, a good example of that recently is the CDK Global. Any of you try to purchase a car this summer around July timeframe? Oh, we got one hand in the back, great. I wanted to create or talk about a use case that actually matters, but you probably experienced it. And my colleague Sam and I, we had another account rep that worked with us, and he mentioned he was actually trying to buy a car and just couldn't actually sign the purchase agreement. They couldn't issue the plate and the registration because of this. This went on for about a month. Think about a car dealership all over the United States and Canada using paper and pen to register deals and close deals. And I think about the monthly accountant that has to try to figure out how much did I just sell this month and what's that profitability look like, and report it back to Toyota, Hyundai, Nissan, et cetera, right? That's very, 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 very interesting. And guess what? The result, they ended up paying the ransomware attackers. 387 Bitcoins, equivalent to about 30, I think 25 million in US dollars. So very, very significant. Auto Canada, which uses the CDK system, which is a very, very antiquated application. They should have really modified it. I mean, they kind of put a nice lipstick over the ugly pig there, but they should have really looked into modifying the application, right? So Auto Canada, I guess they just had really bad luck, because after this breach, they found out, after this ransomware, they found out they were breached again, right? So on August 11th, they had another breach. Now, luckily, they did not actually lose any customer data or have any deep impact. There were some internal systems that were down. So what do we learn from this? We learned that most customers, unfortunately, do not act until bad things happen. And Sam and I see this all the time. One of our major use cases is incident response. So when an incident occurs, they try to react. They try to figure out what breach is and try to remediate. So that's pretty scary, right? So how does ransomware propagate? Well, they usually have some sort of valid account. In this case, with the CDK use case, they actually were able to get into the system, probably a legitimate user, and then be able to go across the network. So lateral movement is certainly a key there. So once you get into one server, you pretty much have access to the entire network. A lot of you that are network guys, many of the network out there are very flat. There's certainly protection at the perimeter, but there's very little protection from the application workload level. So why are attacks successful? 60% of all traffic now are SaaS-based traffic in the cloud, okay, delivering 50% of the threats. We live in a very connected world, right? How many of you have heard of IoT devices being hacked and somehow bring down the network, right? Yeah, very easy. I mean, I don't know the Israeli news just cut these past couple of days. I don't know if that's a supply chain hack or was that a software hack, right? But these are also, again, very, very interesting to see. But what we're seeing here is everything's connected. I mean, we have customers. So about 80% of enterprise customers today run 2 or more public clouds. Right? So if you're a customer, you're probably on Amazon or Microsoft Azure today, enterprise customer. 2 or more, right? So what does that mean? Well, if something in your environment gets hacked, they may have access to the cloud resources as well, right? So how do you protect that in a multi-cloud, hyperscaler, cross-cloud, hybrid cloud, whatever you want to call it? How do you prevent that from happening? So we see many, many different hosts in our environment, right? There could be server-to-server traffic. There could be endpoint, right? Someone mentioned the SolarWinds hack. Well, yeah, that was kind of an endpoint hack, right? We see that quite a bit. And I'll actually go over a quick use case of another law firm that got hacked through the user. IT/OT, right? We're seeing a lot of manufacturing, these IoT devices, as I mentioned as well. Utilities. So we're seeing a lot of that. I mean, Colonial Pipeline was hacked a few years ago, right? We're seeing water companies. Sam and I were just talking to a customer with a water authority agency that was hacked recently. We just dealt with a large retailer that was hacked down in Brazil. Again, I can go on, right? And these are usually endpoints, servers, cloud. Another one is cloud to cloud. So guess what? Again, you have 2 or more clouds. What we're starting to see is customers are on, say they choose AWS as their primary, they might actually do disaster recovery on Microsoft Azure or GCP, or even Oracle, right, OCI. So customers are, spreading the chips a little bit, but at the same time, now you have even a broader range of gaps that you need to fill in, right? So why are attacks successful? Again, the spread, the lateral movement. Once I get access to a particular endpoint, to a particular user, Sam and I were just talking, what if I call Sam using AI and calls his phone and pretend to be his wife and say, hey, I can't get into my laptop right now. Can you give me my password for your laptop, since Sam is here today and he left his laptop at home. And with AI, they're doing impersonation hacking, right? It's very, very scary. So if you have a loved one that's calling you and telling you to on demand to try to do something, question that a little bit. Just step back and say, hey, let me call you back, right, to see if that's the right person. But here again, the key here is in a hyper-converged multi-cloud world, once you get the bad actor that's able to get into one device, one endpoint, one server, they possibly have access to your entire network if you don't act. So what's going on? Most customers have no clue. I mean, we go into a lot of these customers, they really have no visibility. I mean, maybe the network team, right? They have some visibility into, okay, I see the network traffic. You know, the previous presentation was just talking about gathering all that threat data. That's perfect, right? We need more of that. You know, I was talking to Sandeep earlier. We should probably use AI to, you know, be able to predict some of that. So I'm glad to see Strategym's already doing that. So what's going on? How do you get that visibility, especially as a developer? You know, DevSecOps and shift left is very common within the last 5 years in DevOps. Your developers are developing Java applications, Python applications, and they want to actually embed security in there, but they don't know how to, right? And if they deploy that, right, agile programming and agile process, we can deploy an application in a matter of seconds. But what's the impact when I get that application out there? Do they have that visibility? So that's what we're looking for, right? We want to know what's going on. So now we talk about zero trust. So zero trust is a strategy or principle that pretty much is, I don't trust anyone within the network. So not only, you know, usually we don't trust anything that comes in the network at the perimeter, but once you're in the perimeter, right, say a user is actually have a server or a workload inside the perimeter, can they go free roaming within the network? No, that's what we're saying. Let's go ahead and just deny everything by default and start to only allow traffic that we deem proper or we want to allow. This way we can eliminate that. And really the godfather that termed this model, zero trust, is John Kinevog. He started at Forrester and he worked for actually a managed service provider out of Netherlands. And now he works for us with Illumio. So we're hoping to do a world tour with Kinevog and Stratagem coming up. So the idea here is, again, assume breach. Assume that you are going to breach, but what are you going to do to contain breach and provide cyber resilience, right? Kind of tying it to the first presentation of resilience. So the challenging task there is, how do we do that? And the first thing that you need is visibility. So the traditional perimeter security to zero trust is no longer enough, right? You got your PAN, your Palo Altos, your firewalls out there, your SSEs and SASEs. That's great. You need that. But once they're in the network, we need more. We need to protect that east-west traffic, right? If your web application can talk to your application server, to talk to your database server, what if you have a rogue user using a development server? Can they talk to a production database? You certainly don't want that, but how are you restricting that from happening? So that's where zero trust comes in. So what is segmentation? Think about the analogy of a submarine. So if we're able to segment off like a submarine, if there is a breach or an attack, we can still operate. We'll go in and quarantine off that particular zone, and we'll go ahead and respond with incident response, try to remediate and try to figure out what's going on, and try to resolve that. So zero trust should go across your entire hybrid state, on-prem, in the cloud, in the containers, in your AWS serverless Lambda functions, right? Think about the breaches that can happen by just saying Alexa or Siri. They're listening, right? So if I can just issue a command, and that command can call out into a serverless function into the AWS world of, I think they're up to what, 200-300 services. That's pretty powerful, pretty scary at the same time if you don't secure that. So how do we do that? Well, we're doing it at the mainframe level. There's still a lot of any OS 390 or RPG or all these old COBOL programmers out there. Are any of those still there? No, this is a younger group here. AIX Solaris, right? OS 390. I still remember the NT 2003, 2008 days. Linux, we support all of those. We want to support all of those. Mac OS laptops, right? Again, unfortunately, the end users are what's really risky there. So the time for zero trust segmentation is now. Now, the first presenter mentioned it. NIST, right? In the EU, we've got DORA knocking on a door this January. We've got PCI compliance if you're in retail. I mean, there's lots of regulations. HIPAA in the US for healthcare. We need to implement that security. So how do you do that, right? The three common things are assessing the risk, define your controls, and contain breach. Because I guarantee you, you will be breached. It's not an if, but it's a when. So the compliance, certainly we've got NIST. I'm glad the previous gentleman mentioned it already. And then there's ISO and CIS as well. So typically, they all require identifying all the assets. So visibility, right? So you really need to know what you have. You got your CMDB assets. You got, being able to see the actual application dependency mappings. Then you start looking at protecting them, detecting them. And then when there is a breach, you want to be able to quickly respond. So NIST talks about there's three primary zero trust enforcement points. One is identity, which pretty much everyone is doing SAML, multi-factor, two-factor authentication, user-based type of authorization down to the application level, right? So that's been done. Should be pretty mature there. Secondly is zero trust network access. That's your north-south traffic. You're likely doing that as well, right? I saw Fortinet in the room here. Fortinet, they can do that all day long, right? That's great, you need that. But the third, microsegmentation, as of 2023, only 5% of customers worldwide have adopted microsegmentation. And the reason why is they just simply don't know about it. Or if they do, they haven't started on that journey. And this is where we'd love to have the discussion with you. So the security teams look at microsegmentation to implement zero trust in the network, right? So again, the idea is to reduce the blast radius, the attack radius. 4 principles: least privileged access, continuous authentication. Again, you're going to get that with identity. Endpoint trustworthiness. Endpoint, you likely have CrowdStrike or some other EDR, XDR vendors out there that's securing that endpoint, and we can augment that or complement that as well. And then finally, zero trust segmentation. So here's an example of an anatomy of a failed ransomware attack, meaning that they were attacked, but they were able to go away with it without any harm. The attack began at 2 p.m. This was a small global law firm. Attack goes undetected for about an hour and a half, and then finally the attack makes their move and crashes the database, right? Usually the ransomware actor or the bad actor will go ahead and steal some data or crash the application and then try to hold you for ransom. Incident response, the law firm quickly tried to react to it. They try to understand the attack. Again, the key here is they had visibility. Once they see the visibility, they were able to quickly quarantine that particular breach workload. They were able to see 12 servers, including a Microsoft Azure workload. So this was a hybrid cloud type of interface. And then they were able to quarantine and remediate that attack within the day. So by 6:20 p.m., they were actually completing and remediating and assessing any damages. And they assessed that there were no customer data lost. They were able to restore from backup for the database. And it was almost like nothing occurred, right? So again, what they learned from that is because of zero trust and microsegmentation, they were able to easily discover and see the actual attack. No data loss. So as a customer, the very first thing that you want to do is get that visibility. Then you do an assessment of your network and all your workloads. Then we start looking at what we call selective enforcement. Pick out a couple of critical applications and start locking them down, right? When I say locking them down, is a particular part of the application can only talk to a certain part of the application via this specific port, right? Then we also want to look at common core services, things like RDP or Samba or some of these services that may not be needed, right? On the endpoint, as a user, if Sam has a laptop and I have a laptop, does my laptop have to talk to Sam's? No, right? Why would I ever need to connect to his laptop? So definitely restrain that. And then finally get to that full enforcement. So again, assigning the risk, assess the risk, define the security control, contain the attack. So I'll just quickly build out the slide here. And the key here is we can also integrate with some of the end point for some of the asset management, as in push it out all the flow data and all of the audit data into the SIM and SOAR tools. So within 90 days, you should be able to have a very nice visible environment where you're starting to protect your application and be able to test against some of these implemented policy within 3 months. Now this is my last slide here. I just put a panda there just for the fun of it, so I can remember this is the last slide. So importance of zero trust segmentation, 3 things. Visibility, you gotta be able to see to be able to protect it, right? Containment, and lastly, adaptability, being able to be scalable and flexible, right? Whatever solution you choose, it doesn't have to be Illumio, but we certainly hope so, but it has to be scalable and flexible. Thank you, everyone.
Shang, thanks for joining us today, flying in from Florida. And also Sam, I want to call out the global MSSP lead for Illumio, flying in from Pennsylvania today. Thanks for being here. All right, I'm going to call up the panel now, the moment everyone's been waiting for. These experts, if you could take your seats, I'm going to do a quick introduction, and please hold the applause until the very end, so please make your way up.
Watch your step.
All right, excellent. I'm going to start off with Malik on the far right. First, Malik Baoud, Group CISO at Shift Technologies, AI technologies, that is. With over 24 years of global experience, Malik has been a leader in reshaping information security frameworks across financial institutions and government sectors worldwide. His expertise spans AI, blockchain, and IoT, with a hands-on approach to integrating cybersecurity into business processes. Malik also served as a cybersecurity advisor at the Ministry of ICT in Qatar, where he led the national cybersecurity strategies and developed sector-wide cybersecurity initiatives. Next up, we have Azim Makan, Senior Regional VP for Pre-Sales Security at Fortinet, a cybersecurity veteran with over 20 years of experience in network security. He has helped protect mission-critical infrastructure for industries ranging from healthcare to financial services, and has been instrumental in building enterprise managed services across Canada's largest organizations. Next up, we have John Menezes, President and CEO of Stratagem, a visionary leader with over 30 years in cybersecurity. John has been at the forefront of pioneering security as a service and driving innovation through Strategem cybersecurity mesh architecture, offering end-to-end protection for enterprises. Next, we have Michelle Richer, SVP Enterprise Solutions, Data Engineering, and AI from Bell Canada. Michelle is helping lead Bell's transformation from a telco to a techco, working closely with global leaders in AI and cloud technology. His focus is driving innovative solutions for Bell's customers. And last but not least, we have Tala Iqbal, who is our moderator for the evening, Director of the Cyber Intelligence Center at Strategem. He brings over 12 years of experience in SOC operations. Tala is a seasoned leader in incident response and has played a key role in shaping strategies for day-to-day security operations. Combining his practical expertise and his passion for educating the next generation of cybersecurity professionals, Tala Iqbal. Before we hand it over, I'm just going to let everybody know, we will do a Q&A session at the very end. So Eugene and Dharma will walk around with some mics at the end of the presentation. With that being said, Tala, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Nisreen, for that wonderful introduction. Hello, everyone. It's great to be back here for our 4th Mississauga Cybersecurity Forum. My name is Tala Iqbal, and I'm the Director of Cyber Intelligence Center at Strategem, and I'll be your moderator for this panel today. The topic we're going to talk about is nothing new in cyber. We heard Rob in the keynote on how we need to go beyond traditional cybersecurity, focusing not just on preventing attacks, but also ensuring that organizations continue to function without compromising on their outcomes despite successful cyber attacks, data breaches, or system failures. Our topic for today is navigating the future of cyber resilience, and we have a great panel here to talk about it. So let's jump right into it. Azim, I'm going to start with you first. As SVP at Fortinet, what does cyber resilience mean to you and your organization, and what distinguishes it from traditional cybersecurity?
First of all, thanks for inviting me. Great topic, cyber resiliency. Rob actually did an excellent job. Rob, where are you? Can I borrow slide 1? Anyway. Cyber resiliency versus traditional cybersecurity. I believe that cyber resiliency takes it further than just traditional cybersecurity. Traditional cybersecurity's main focus really was on threats and defense of those threats. Cyber resiliency goes a step further and is about a business or an organization's ability to continue to operate, to continue to deliver desired business outcomes. And it does this through the implementation of various robust strategies, whether it's recovery, business, continuity. It's more of a holistic view of the organization's ability to detect, respond, recover, and really importantly, to grow and learn from these experiences, right? The ability to bounce back is critical these days. We've all seen in the news where organizations have been shuttered. They've been shut down weeks, months on end, and the loss of brand reputation, the loss of income. Bouncing back is extremely critical. And I also think cyber resiliency addresses the reality that no system is 100% immune to breaches.
Absolutely, and you made a good point that it's more than just defense. It's more than just traditional security. It's all about your ability to recover from a successful attack, your ability to recover from a data breach. So now let's dive a bit deeper. I'd like to explore some of the key elements. Testing. All right, so let's dive a bit deeper. I'd like to explore some key elements that contribute to cyber resilience. And my next question is to Michelle. As SVP of Cybersecurity and Data Engineering, AI at Bell Canada, what are the key attributes of cyber resilience for organizations to build and maintain?
Yeah. I'll give a very similar answer, but taking it from a bit of a different angle. The way I think about cyber resilience is really 2 premises. And then it's what you do about it once you've accepted those 2 premises. Premise number 1 is that unless you're a cybersecurity vendor, the purpose of your organization isn't cybersecurity. Purpose of your organization is to provide a service to customers, is to provide care to patients if you're in healthcare, educate kids if you're in education, and goes on and on. So that's the purpose of your organization. And cybersecurity is there to enable you to do it without getting too much in the way of that purpose. premise number one. Premise number two is there's no such thing as perfection in cybersecurity. If there is such a thing, it's only true for a very finite moment in time, and then it drifts away from being less and less perfect. So the whole concept of cyber resilience is everything you do once you've accepted those two premises.
Now, I'd like to build on that, and I'd turn over to Malik as Chief Information Security Officer at ShiftTech. Your organization operates in a fast-moving, dynamic tech environment. How do you view cyber resilience, and how does it influence your approach to securing such an evolving landscape?
Well, let's, can you hear me? Well, first of all, thank you for having me here. It's really a pleasure being in this panel with all these experts here. Well, I think cyber resiliency has also an element of context in a sense that it doesn't mean the same thing when you're working on national level, defining critical infrastructure, for example, or you're focusing on a particular area of a business. So at Shift Technology, we're a SaaS cloud native company. So which means, as you've seen before from the presentation you got from Illumio, for example, on ZTNA, on the Zero Trust network, your network expands beyond just your boundaries, your premises. So you have to take in consideration workloads, you have to take in consideration applications running as virtual apps across different boundaries of your network. And your network goes beyond just your premises. So for us, resiliency is instilled by, first, a leadership, a vision. So we come with an idea that the business is to be supported to be resilient with a proper cybersecurity strategy initially. And then all of that translates into different streams of activities that we have across the boundaries. We like to talk about cybersecurity by design in everything we're doing. Since we're providing SaaS applications to our customers, we're serving customers worldwide, we need to make sure that every bit of our code, every element of our infrastructure is defensible, is protected, is also ensuring that the service is kept running across the service we're providing. So there's an element of leadership influence into what cyber resiliency becomes on the ground in the operations. So, and that part, designing that strategy together with the management, for example, the organization, leads to having, strategies like we heard shift-left strategy initially. So how we inject security at the lowest level of our stack, or how we ensure that there's a culture of cybersecurity within the organization. So all of that is really driven by vision, and cyber resiliency is just is one large element of that composes basically our strategy at Shift, for example. But overall, as cybersecurity experts, that drives also what we see in the details and what we often forget also sometimes when we do cybersecurity in general. So cyber resiliency helps us remind us that in a way that we have to keep the business floating, keep the business running, whatever happens. And the whatever happens is something we need to estimate, we need to calculate, we need to assess to be able to create those strategies that are moving. So when you design a security framework, you don't have a fixed framework, you adapt to all these new technologies that are coming on a regular basis. So an infrastructure team will come and deploy new containers, they will need to follow a certain practice. So how do you inject all these processes within your organization so an infrastructure team, as someone sitting in HR, understand what's at stake when doing these actions, or when running, for example, containers in the virtual world. So.
Thank you, Malik. And it's fascinating to hear how resilience is tailored differently based on the needs and the industry that the organization operates in. And you touched upon two great points. It also depends on the leadership and the culture of the organization. Yeah. I'll come to that in a second. I want to bring John into the conversation as President and CEO of Stratagem, now a Bell Canada company. How do you ensure that your own organization, Stratagem, remains resilient while also managing the resilience of multiple clients with different security needs?
I have a very difficult task, and it's a huge challenge, because at Stratagem we deal with a range of customers. So we have large customers, we have small customers, we have customers in finance and critical infrastructure. And while everybody talks a good story about cybersecurity and cyber resilience, and every time I meet with any company, they always say, cybersecurity is the number one or the number two for our organization. The fact of the matter is, it's almost like, God, I've got to do cybersecurity now because, like Michelle said, we have to run our business, and cybersecurity is something we have to do, or we can't run our business. And so it's almost a mindset change. We've got to change the mindset of the business that cybersecurity is more than penance for you. You have to really focus on it. You need to talk about cybersecurity at the start of a project, not at the end. And so the way, for Stratagem, we're constantly learning. So what do? We're constantly doing, red teaming exercises, blue teaming, red team, purple team exercises. Why? Because we think we have great control at Stratagem. Okay, I think we have the best control of any cybersecurity company in the world. But we have to test them. And like Michelle said, it's perfection is only for a minute or two, and then you start to wander off. So we got to test it. We got to run these blue team, red team exercise all the time. It's a painful exercise for us, but for the business, it's a costly exercise. So most customers will do a red team, blue team exercise once a year, and they do it once a year not because they think it's important. They do it once a year because they have to follow GDPR, or they have to follow SOX, or they have to do PCI. So it's a painful exercise. And the other thing we're doing for customers that we're educating our customers on is a tabletop exercise. A tabletop exercise is so important so that you understand what you have to do in the event of a breach. So the incident response process, sometimes we put executives together in a tabletop exercise, and somebody asked me, should I pay the ransom? You should know that. That should have been decided 6 months ago. Does the CFO decide who's going to pay the ransom, or does the CEO decide who's going to pay the ransom, or do you even pay the ransom? So what we've done at Stratagem is that we're just trying to lead by example. Okay, we're just trying to lead. So we're doing monthly blue teaming exercises, and we show customers the results of these exercises that we do. So we're trying to build a best practice guide for our customers. Okay, and we're saying this is what we are doing. Okay, this is what we're doing. We'd like you to do the same things, but customers have a need. They have budget constraints, they have resource constraints. I was at a customer the other day, and he says, I've got an SAP project going, John, and this is not important to me. Talk to me in 6 months. That's fantastic. But if your SAP project got breached, it's going to cost you millions and millions of dollars and a loss of reputation. I'm sorry, I think I gave a long-winded answer to your short question.
That's perfect. That's what we're looking for. So I like that you talked about testing, red teaming, blue teaming, and also sometimes compliance dictates you to be resilient. I'd like to circle back to Malik, something he mentioned earlier. We talked about the technical and operational aspects of cyber resilience, but leadership and company culture plays a crucial role as well. So Malik, how do leadership decisions and company culture shape your organization's approach to cyber resiliency?
Well, that's a pretty wide question, and a very interesting one in the sense that it's always a challenge to try to convince management, for example, about budgets or decisions to be taken in supporting you in the right direction. Right? It's never something easy. It's something that you need to always battle for. But what's important is that once you get that support, that leadership commitment towards your cybersecurity program in a way, then you basically go ahead and devise whatever risk mitigation measures you need to put in place, and based on multiple indicators you'll be able to use to be able to provide the right metrics for the management to decide on what's right to invest in and what's not. That helps you in a way then gain control on what would be implemented on an operational basis. So what I mean is that there's an element of information that needs to always circle back to the management to be able to, so they become aware of a situation. So you organize, of course, discussion through committees, and you structure your governance model in the sense that the management is at the center also of many decisions, not just once a year where you need to sign off budgets, but more regularly into sharing indicators, appealing for having the CEO advocate for cybersecurity as well in front of everyone as well. And we do that on a regular basis. So we have regular conversation with my CEO, for example, on the common threats that we're seeing. And that level of education is not something we do everywhere in every organization, but in that level, in that context, that helps a lot push the message to everyone. So that's constant awareness. People are the weaklings. So we heard a few moments ago in one of the presentations that in the end, the user behind the laptop could be the cause of many, many big damage. And that's true. It starts often with social engineering, it starts with phishing. And then it goes to the extent that we may know for various ransomware attacks we've seen. So since devil is in details for us in cybersecurity, we need to look into the data patterns, we need to look into really what's happening on the ground. And there's a massive amount of data that we need to collect to be able to assert that something is really happening. So it's important that we also keep the focus on the preventive measures. And we talk to our users on a regular basis. We explain things. We talk about risks and threats they never heard about. So that's something that I'm always advocating, because this is a big portion of the problems that we're encountering. So how people react to an email, how people react to a message or a call or anything is really crucial. At a point where now people are sending us tons of messages. So now we're getting spammed in security actually now. We have a lot of messages from users saying, oh, this looks fishy, this looks strange, even though they have tools to be able to report these kind of things. But I'm glad we reached that level, because that means that they pay attention to that level of detail. So for me, it's one big part of your resiliency strategy is how you embed people, the human factor, into your cybersecurity program overall. And when we say security by design, it's not just like shift left, DevSecOps. We're doing a lot of work there, and we have many, many gates for that. But it's also about how people react in front of adversity. So we talked about tabletop exercises. That's absolutely crucial, and that's something we tend to do as often as possible, and it's fun. So we create our games. It's not that expensive. It's expensive in terms of resource and time and efforts, but once we have the game going, it's pretty fun and it works pretty well. And then we need also to engage a lot of people that are not in our field. So we understand them and we get them on board into crafting those exercises with them. So next month is Cyber Month, so it's the right time actually to trigger this kind of actions as well. And we do that in our case.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. A couple of things that resonated with me was, yes, you need security controls in place. You need the preventive measures in place. You need to rely on the technology that you use, but also convincing the business and articulating the risk, using the right metrics, making sure that key stakeholders are with you with regards to leading a resilience practice within the organization. And it comes from the top, right? So the top level leadership, it comes from the CEO. So having the CEO backing up the resilience practice will definitely help. So thank you for that, Malik. Azim, I need to ask you the same question from a leadership standpoint at Fortinet. What role do leadership and culture play in maintaining a strong cyber resilience strategy for Fortinet and its customers?
Sure, great question. Malik covered off quite a few topics there, which was fantastic, makes my job a lot easier. Culture is actually very near and dear to my heart, right? And I won't branch off into the sociological or psychological or group dynamics impact of it, but it's definitely needed. And I will tell you this, at Fortinet we say culture trumps strategy. You can implement strategies, they may or may not succeed. But if you implement the proper culture, and it becomes part of your organization's DNA, it becomes very powerful and persistent, right? Now, leadership definitely has to be involved, right? They have to set the tone for what are your security priorities, right? They also have to be there to foster that right culture of proactive risk management. I think when leadership champions these causes, it's fantastic. It now takes security to the forefront, the impact of business resiliency, and it doesn't become a topic that's siloed off for IT and SecOps teams, their concern only, right? And this is, you touched on a very good point. We at Fortinet do this all the time. It has to be done with continuous communications, constant training. We do, periodic tests. They'll send things to us, and if you click the wrong thing, you're screwed. But quarterly training that we have to do and recertification. So it definitely has to be driven from the top, the leadership, right? and it has to become part of the business's overall strategy.
Absolutely. And see, what you mentioned, culture trumps strategy. I love that. And continuous improvement, training, ensuring that you're doing the right things to keep the organization resilient. Thank you for that, Azim. I want to move to another critical aspect, and I want to change the focus from organizational leadership to leveraging technology. And when we talk about technology, AI comes to mind, and it's the forefront of many conversations. So Michelle, I'd like to ask you, how do you leverage AI to enhance an organization's cyber resilience?
As much as the focus of the question is on AI, I think the focus of the answer is just aside from AI. Just feedback about the mic working? All right. So key here is there were a lot of discussions earlier about time, speed, time to containment, time to respond. And AI is an extremely effective tool. Issue is that it's also effective for attackers, and we'll discuss this a bit later. But it's extremely effective only to the extent that we find ways to use it so that we're faster. And the key there is really how is it integrated in processes? How do you use it in automated flows? Or how do you orchestrate all of your actions? Because if AI is only an additional source of information, then more information means more time to digest, more time to take action. So really, as much as they are probably overused nowadays, I'd say automation, orchestration, and integration are the keys to using AI. And then the second part is use it as is in the tools. The tools that now are integrating AI have extremely good AI. Use it fast, they're going to get better, keep using them instead of super customizing.
Absolutely. Orchestration, automation, and integration. Those are the three key elements. Now, when we talk about the role of managed security service in this evolving landscape, John, I want to turn to you and ask, with the increasing complexity of cyber threats, how do you see the role of managed security service evolving to help organizations build and sustain long-term resilience? And I'm going to give you an example of the recent breach or recent outage that we saw from CrowdStrike. Many organizations, many users were impacted by that. So how do you think the role of managed services evolving to ensure and sustain long-term cyber resilience?
I think the best thing that we can do is to reduce the burden on the enterprise. I think, and everybody is looking at cybersecurity as a burden, okay? And you hear about security operations centers having alert fatigue, and you hear about security operations centers having false positives. And so you have all these challenges, and you know, sometimes people are just fed up. You know, I'm going to get breached, so I'll get breached, right? And so sometimes that's the attitude of organization. So what Stratagem is doing, and what we've been doing for the last 9 years, is that we're trying to make cybersecurity easy for the enterprise. Okay, make it easy for the enterprise, make it consumable for the enterprise. So our security as a service is designed to do exactly that. And you know, Michelle talked about orchestration and automation. Well, that's exactly what we're using AI to do. We're using AI to make the job of the security analyst easy. We're using automation so that, you know, instead of the analyst having to look at 100 incidents a day, they just need to look at 10. So they're becoming more efficient. They're not having this alert fatigue. Because, you know, it's a complex business. And so our job is to take that complexity, okay, and make it simple. And that's what security as a service is meant to be. It's meant to be simple so that the enterprise can give the security operations over to Stratagem and know that they're getting a great service that is all integrated. And I think that's the best way we can approach it, because, you know, I don't sleep at night nowadays because of AI and the complexity of attacks and the volume of attacks. So it's no longer a case of I'm going to hire 10 more analysts, I'm going to hire 100 more analysts. It has to be about automation. And it's exactly like Michelle said, you've got to use the AI that's built into the tools. All the tools have got a great AI. You got to, but like Simran and Diego talked about use cases, you know, you got to do the requirements analysis, you got to figure it all out, and so it's complex. So as a managed service provider, my job is to make it simple for my customers. So my customers can say, you know what, we've outsourced our cybersecurity to Stratagem, and now we can sleep soundly at night.
Thank you for that, John. Michelle, I want to circle back to you. We talked about how the threats are evolving. We talked about integration. And John, you just mentioned that the rapid threats are keeping you up at night. So we're seeing AI becoming increasingly integrated into security operations. So Michelle, do you view AI more of a threat or an advantage when it comes to enhancing cyber resilience?
I'm afraid my answer is not too positive, but as you think about it, the tools used by both sides are exactly the same. And it's even more so the case with Gen AI. It was a bit different in the past generation of machine learning that we were seeing predominantly. But with Gen AI, attackers, defenders, they're using the exact same tool in the exact same form, right? People will use the exact same large language models, even tap into them in the same web-based tools. So now it's all about how fast are you learning to use them, how fast are you changing your practices, as you look at the speed of adopting those in large organizations, I think by default there's a disadvantage there. So the only thing that can change that is for us to keep learning faster as a community, and then outsourcing that complexity to either systems, processes, or organizations that can learn at that very fast pace.
Absolutely. If the attackers are using AI-powered tools, we have to ensure that we are adopting quickly to keep ourselves secure. Malik, I'm going to move to you. Your organization operates in the EU, where we have strict data protection regulations. That becomes a key factor. How does industry regulations or compliance requirements shape your organization's cyber resilience effort?
Well, they will punish us if we don't do it, right? No, I think regulations are very, very important, and they're getting more mature now as we move on with those emerging technologies, or so-called emerging technologies. They've been harnessed now. But you're right. I mean, we're working across multiple jurisdictions. Europe is one. We are also in Asia. We're here in America. I mean, Canada, US, also Mexico, Brazil. So every country has its own sort of regulations. So the way we deal with that also is we try to always harmonize frameworks. GDPR for us is our baseline. So you can bring PIPEDA, you can bring any other LPDR in Brazil and others. You always have sort of commonalities. Then you have stringent requirements in some of the laws. So DORA is coming. We're already mapping it to our requirements. The good thing is that DORA just reasserts what normally, I mean, I assume many of us here are doing already. Operational resilience is something that is not new for many of us, but it's enforced now through a regulator, which means, well, you better have it. You better have to have it, whether it's vulnerability management, whether it's having testing plans for your continuity, for your infrastructure. All of that are really common sense to us as cybersecurity professionals. I think from the moment we started, I mean, I started my career 4 years ago. We're on-prem, rigid architecture infrastructure. We're cloud native. We have multiple data centers available to us, but we also have multiple threats, of course, much bigger risk and threats. But those regulations are here somehow to sort of put the frame around what is normally practiced in our security standards. You take ISO, you take NIST, or even requirements for SOC 2 or HITRUST, for example. We are HITRUST certified. HITRUST is, we covered 475 requirements last year. And you better have vulnerability management programs, you better have testing programs, you better have an understanding from your management, from the leadership about cyber risk and cybersecurity. So if you don't have this, nowadays it's pretty hard to sustain a business and to get the trust also from your customers. So when we do all these certifications and all this practice is also of great value for our businesses. So when we hear, I don't know, what's it called, the Insurance Bureau in the US, I forgot the term exactly, but praising your security practice in a way, that's something already of a victory in a way. And that means that we're able also to demonstrate all of these requirements, not waiting for regulation to come to us. One thing I need to say also, though, is I've been sitting in a regulator position in my previous experience as well. And one thing you notice is that regulators will always be late after the technology. They will always be in the back because they don't also touch on some fundamentals. Fundamentals with regards to those technologies, the way we build those technologies as well. We're still in a fairly large Wintel world in a way, I would call it this way, reminiscent from the past terms we used in the 90s and the early 2000s. And there's a lot to be accomplished yet to be able to apprehend security by design by the technologist as well. So we're not blaming the regulator, we're also blaming the technologist in a way.
I'm glad you brought up DORA. For those of you who don't know, Digital Operational Resilience Act. And it focuses on risk management, right? So it's all about building that framework. And especially for the financial sector, it's going to make a big impact. Azim, I'd like to bring the global perspective into focus now. What core principles guides Fortinet's approach to cyber resilience, and how have regulatory or compliance standards influenced your strategy for protecting customers around the globe?
Sure. Let's see. Our mission really is to create a secure, more safe environment, cyber environment for everyone, users, devices, data, everywhere. In order to do that, we do follow a few principles, one being zero trust architecture. Gone are the days of someone can authenticate and have the keys to the kingdom. So that continuous verification, validation of authentication and authorization at a per session level is what is driving driving a lot of it. I would also say automation and AI is a huge principle. So we're developing the tools, the technologies to give everyone the visibility and the ability to respond in a timely fashion. And I think a big one, which we tout all over, is that we're broad, automated, and integrated. And what we mean by that is the attack surface, the threat landscape is ever changing, ever growing. And so we need to be able to cover everything, right from the endpoint to the network to the cloud, right? And with a secure, unified fabric approach, we're able to provide that. And businesses and managed services partners can also leverage these technologies to help bring that to the customers.
Absolutely, and with that...
The regulatory compliance, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Right, so there are a plethora of regulatory compliance, am I not correct? And, whether it's GDPR, SOC, ISO, NIST, MITRE, they all provide a framework of how organizations what to protect, how to protect it, how to respond, how to recover, et cetera. And so that does influence our products because we develop the technologies and the products to help customers, because this gets very complicated very soon, right? In order for customers to map our technologies, our products, to each aspect of those frameworks.
No, that's great. And John, coming back to the world of managed security services, they play a crucial role in supporting organizations. And Azim talked about zero trust architecture, integration, automation, and vast frameworks and compliance and regulatory requirements. How do you ensure that Strategem services meet these regulatory requirements while staying flexible, cost-effective, and innovative?
It's magic. The truth of the matter is that I believe, and I've believed for a long time, the fundamentals are the same. Okay, the fundamentals are the same. So if you practice good cyber hygiene, okay, you patch your systems on time, you have EDR, everything works. Everything works. So today it's GDPR, tomorrow it's PCI, then it's PAPIDA. If you're in the utility sector, it's NERC, SIP. You get all these new compliance, all these new regulations coming out. And I've also said, enterprises don't spend money on security, they spend money on compliance. Customers in Europe are spending money not on security, they're spending money on being compliant with GDPR. And so if you do the fundamentals, see, we always get carried away. We get carried away with the new shiny toy, the new shiny tool, and we forget about the basics. I think one of the presenters earlier on talked about, knowing visibility, knowing where all your assets are. It's a very basic thing. But every time I go to a customer site, I'll say, how many servers do you have? They'll say, I have 300. And somebody says, no, I've got 250. No, somebody said, I've got 3,000. And so we're not practicing the basic cyber hygiene. So if we don't practice the basic cyber hygiene, then you're running around trying to figure out what compliance, and should I be PCI, now I'll segment these servers. So I think, and it comes back to the point I'm making earlier, the mindset has to change. So you've got to do the basic things, and the basic things are not sexy. So nobody wants to do the basic things. So I think as a managed service provider, I want to do those basic things for you. So let me do so they're not sexy, let me do the basic things for you, so that you will then be compliant with whatever regulation the governments might come out with today, tomorrow, and the number of regulations coming is just going to be more. Okay, they're not going to go away. But if you follow the basic stuff, do the basic hygiene, no matter what regulation comes out, you'll be compliant.
I couldn't agree more. Basic cyber hygiene. We can't be innovative, we can't automate if you're not following basic security practices. Michelle, coming back to the topic of AI, with organizations now adopting AI, how do you see it changing the way they think about cyber resilience?
Okay. I'll link it to the basics, right? To demystify the idea, AI is actually just creating new ways to create information, share information, store it, and have it communicate between systems. Basically, that's what's happening. So it's really important just to be highly practical and look in each organization, how are people actually using AI and what is changing on those basics. So the main ones that are happening right now, and we'll see it keep evolving over time, but as of today, employees are using Gen AI tools either within their environment or web-based. So understanding how are employees using it, what information are they sending, and if you haven't done so so far, I'd highly encourage anyone to give very clear guidelines on how is it okay to use it in your organization, what kind of information can you put in a prompt. As you think of the exponential size of the prompts right now, being able to put 1 million tokens in a prompt, so thousands of pages of document, all of a sudden you can feed a lot more information outside of your organization that before employees could have done it, but there was absolutely no reason to do it. So that's the big one. How are they using LLMs? Is it within the environment, outside the environment? The second one is, it was mentioned before, using LLMs and other models to develop code faster is enabling your developer community to do a lot of things better, but also to do them much, much faster so that your application landscape and your infrastructure landscape can change much faster. So understanding what this mean in order to protect it are probably the first two I'd start with.
Absolutely, and you have to consider data protection and privacy laws. You have to take that into consideration. Malik, from your experience, if you can share some key metrics, indicators that your organization uses to measure the effectiveness of their cyber resilience efforts.
Well. I've got more than 30 plus indicators that helps me measure my program initially, with hundreds of metrics behind. But if I would pick a few of them, it goes from number of eventually suppliers where we have assessed, for example. We're looking to the risk posture of vendors, so we keep metrics about number of vendors, where number of suppliers we're testing, and of which we have high risk vendors, for example. It goes there to number of awareness message we sent, or there are plenty of metrics. And on the technical side, we look into, of course, threat events, and that's where we connect most to our risk indicators. We have a lot of risk indicators that collects information about some patterns of behavior patterns that we created in-house as well for our platforms. So what we look at. So usually, we heard earlier that people, of course, measure the mean time to recover and to respond as well, to detect and to respond to incident potentially, of course. But I mean, we monitor that on really regular basis. We have linked that to our security assurance plan. So what's important for me, what I mean there, is that those indicators need to make sense for your environment and need to make sense to your controls. What threats are really coming to your organization. So it has to be contextualized. So those 30 plus indicators I mentioned are all covering most of the program. And in terms of data privacy control, for example, we're looking into any servers that wouldn't have its disk encrypted, for example. It goes to that level metrics, or potentially, I'm just trying to think specifically on some of them, but now we're entering into the Gen AI mode, etc. So we control it strictly, that use, and we developed our own internal GPT in a way, internal chatbot that has that leverages a controlled version of the Azure OpenAI service, because we're operating over Azure. So we put also metrics there. So in terms of number of prompts initiated as well. So we go into the bit of not paranoid mode, but sort of looking at where those metrics make sense to our environment.
That's wonderful. Azim, would you like to add to that? Are there any key metrics you can share with us to assess cyber resilience?
Yeah, I think you know, the normal cast of characters, obviously, mean time to detection, how quickly can we detect an incident or event, mean time to respond, you know, how quickly can we respond, mean time to recovery, can we actually avoid the incident or altogether, or how long does it take us to get back to an operational state? Those are fantastic, I think, baseline metrics for sure. We also use, as Malik mentioned, regulatory compliance, right? Are we meeting the regulatory requirements of whether it's GDPR, NIST, MITRE, whatnot, ISO, SOC? But I think the key one that we have the advantage to really take advantage of is our FortiGuard labs, right? This is you know, our teams that are collecting threat intel from around the globe. We're talking many petabytes of data, and we can look at not just for Fortinet but for customers, right? What are the you know, the volumetrics, the volume of attacks that are happening? What are the trends? You know, what types of attacks? And then we can really judge Fortinet ourselves. Are we getting better? Are we improving at detection, at prevention, at, you know, helping customers respond in a timely fashion? And I think that secret sauce is fantastic. It's great, and we don't keep that to ourselves. This gets baked into and leveraged by our products within the security fabric, leveraged by MSSPs as well, that we share the threat intel. We're part of the cyber threat alliances. Many of those forums that share a lot of this intel and information. But I think that's a key differentiator for us.
No, that's wonderful. And John, I know you love these metrics, mean time to detect, mean time to contain, and mean time to recover. Now, how do these metrics play a role in your organization as a managed security service provider to increase cyber resilience and to better respond to cyber threats?
So the first thing is most of these metrics that we're using today are old IT metrics that have little or no value in cybersecurity. But, you know, my customers demand to see a time, you know, SLA for mean time to respond and fun stuff like that. What we're doing at Stratagem is, the important thing is, once we know that something bad is happening, how quickly can we contain it? Okay, and I'm on this mission to have time to containment of under 5 minutes. And the only way you can get time to containment under 5 minutes if you have everything integrated, all your systems integrated. And that's how we have the cybersecurity mesh architecture, because it's all about integration. If we have integration and automation, then we can do time to containment of under 5 minutes. So this is whether it's Monday morning at 10 o'clock or whether it's Sunday night at 2 o'clock. We're going to have the same level of service, and that is what we're aiming for, and that is what Stratagem is aiming for. This mean time to detect it's a meaningless metric, because nobody knows what are you detecting. You know, what are you detecting? So it's meaningless. But we want to have actionable metrics, so mean time to contain. So once we've seen something bad happening, how quickly can we block a port block an IP on the firewall? How quickly can we disable a user? How quickly can we delete a phishing email? To me, those are key metrics within the framework of cybersecurity. And that is what Stratagem is leading the way on, this new way of looking at cybersecurity, making sure that security operations is really delivering on the promise.
Thank you, John. To wrap up, I'd like to hear from each of you on a more personal note. if you could share a recent success, challenge, or lessons learned in your efforts to improve your organization's cyber resilience, and how have these experiences shaped your current strategies? It would be great if you could reflect from your practical experiences and share some insights. So Michelle, we'll start with you.
Okay. Simple one. I think as an overall community in cybersecurity, we've made things very, very complex over multiple cycles of adding complexity. And it's stiffening now our ability to change and improve faster. So it's not easy to do, but the more we can take decisions that simplify the way we do things, that we go through unified platforms, that we go through systems that are integrated, that we remove some layers in our stack, and we don't add orchestration platforms over orchestration to simplify the stack. Those are all things that can help give us the velocity to keep moving forward.
Perfect. John?
Well, to me, is the use of automation. I have a customer, Superior Propane, and I use them as a case study all the time. Last year, I went to the CIO and I said, we want to block ports on your firewall in real time. And he said, my team says, we're not going to give you SSH access. We're not going to give you admin access, block this port on the firewall. But I persevered. I kept bugging him every 2 or 3 months. I'd meet with him, our quarterly business review, and I said, need to do automation. And finally, he relented and he said, okay, we'll do automation in this segment of the business. And we started that. And 6 months later now, we have got 27 or 28 use cases that are all based on automation for Superior Propane. Now, the opposite is happening. He's calling me up and saying, why is the automation strategy so slow? Why aren't you automating more stuff in my environment? And so it's so much a case of education and evangelization. So I have the pleasure of meeting with a range of customers, in the GTA, in Ottawa, in Montreal, in Eastern Canada. So I see a lot of fun stuff happening, and sometimes you think a customer is very mature and they're going to want automation, and when you start talking to them, they don't want any automation. They don't want any automation. So we're just happy campers. We're just chugging along because I believe that automation and orchestration is the key to cyber resilience.
Thank you for that, John. Azim?
So this is I'll take this from a little bit from a different angle because I don't really, that's not really part of my job description. But just recent events for us. I would say one of the key things was a reinforcement of the requirement to have a resiliency plan in effect, right? And I would say one key lesson about it was it can't be static. It has to be a scalable strategy. It has to be a dynamic strategy because the business needs change, the security needs change. And for us, responsible disclosure had to be taken into account, transparency. So there was a lot of lessons learned there, but I would say the key one is definitely, it is definitely a requirement to have a resiliency strategy.
Thank you. Malik?
Yeah, for me, I think there are a couple of experiences I had that defined new processes that I had to build at some point. They're not recent. They are pretty far actually. But one was, I'll go with this one. Was that multinational company in Switzerland where we had like multiple layers of suppliers working across all the OZ stack, system, network, application. They're all different and not talking to each other. I discovered that when I arrived. And I found something very strange. I like to look into the details. For CISO, I like to be a bit hands-on. So I go to the firewall a bit like John, hey, give me the admin rights, I want to see. No, it's managed by that company. Okay, I can't. Then let's go into the system. Those vendors are all handling, because everything was outsourced in that company. They're all handling different information, different controls in their hands without any framework where we would be able to gather them together, to work together, because even each layer were not talking to each other. So the challenge for me is say, how do I make sense of all the information I can get from one place to another? If something happens to the network, what do I see on the system level? What kind of event I can get? And by digging further, I identified some very interesting traffic. So you're starting to see computers talking to other computers, right? You see, well, this traffic here, there's no TLS traffic between this machine and this machine normally. So we talked about zero trust earlier. So I started digging further into that and identified that actually there was a machine that was talking to one of our sites abroad in another place. It was in India. We had like a couple of engineers working from there and working on the application stack. So the application, there was something happening on the application layer. When I say application layer, I'm not talking about specific applications, but more people working in the application world in our stack. And then I connect the dots and I try to search a bit what's happening on the network side and identify there's really communication, regular communication going through that. And by digging further, I identified there was a rootkit actually planted in some machines remotely in distant places. And that rootkit was coming from another country. That country targeted that machine from that country. So it started to become a bit more complex, not James Bond style, but I mean, something very interesting. And I identified there was really that rootkit that was moving laterally, that was actually hiding from your scanners. So antivirus, nothing, not to avail, you couldn't get anything. So the only way to detect it was really to look into the behavior, the patterns. So all these patterns matched. It took me, we talked about MTDD, so mean time to detect. It probably took me 3-4 months since I arrived. And the moment I arrived, I started digging into that. It took me like 1 month, and then 3 months after, I was discovering that. It was a very sophisticated rootkit that had like 13 functions. For those who know, it was called plugix at the time. And it was evolving, so it was capable of uploading from C2 servers remotely. So very classic nowadays. It was 2012 at the time. And that led to multiple things. That event for me was creating those frameworks where we have those layers to talk to each other is the minimum, but also ensuring that we have also a solid third-party security strategy, whereby supplier have to abide by some practice, and enforcing also risk indicators to our suppliers. So it was not usual that at that time you would ask a supplier to send to you risk indicators on a monthly basis, depending on the criticality of your data they're processing. But actually worked. I had to push it and advocate the strategy and even build a tool at some point, because measuring that across 64,000 suppliers we had at the time, it was tough. It's not something easy and it takes time. It took me 9 months really to set up all the process. But that's my first third-party real security strategy that was born out of this exercise that has nothing to do with third-party directly, but it was directly linked through the process, not on the technology stack. You know.
So it paid off that you rolled up your sleeves and hands on keyboard and went threat hunting.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Well, with that, I would like to thank all of you for those insights. We have a few minutes left, so I'd like to open the floor for some questions from the audience. If anyone has a question for our panelists, raise up your hand and someone will come by with a microphone.
Good evening. My name is Brinda, and my question would be to Mr. John. I either make a complete fool of myself or I get this question right, so I'm going to try either ways. You said about how you would like a customer to completely hand over their enterprise and security as a service to Stratagem, which is also in line with Mr. Michel's first premise, which is the vendors should be completely responsible and within their own niche, but keep factoring in what Mr. Malik and what Mr. Azim said about leadership and having culture trumping strategy. How do you as an organization make sure you factor in all these nuances and still convince them with budget restraints that to conduct the expensive experiment on the ground level? How do you convince them? Like you spoke about a customer who was starting off a SAP project but wasn't ready to get into it at the onset. On the ground level, in actuality, how do you convince them that this is something they need to do at the onset and not when it's too late?
Wow, congratulations, you are listening to the panel. So the way I convince them, I'm a great sales guy. So I can convince customers. It's all about integrity. It's all about credibility. Okay, so customers don't outsource their services to a MSSP because they are fly by night. We have shown leadership. We have shown innovation for many years, and so customers recognize that. And when a customer recognizes that we are leaders in the space, we are innovators in the space, sometimes when I tell you to automate, it might seem scary to you, okay? But if it's coming from me, and I've been in this business for over 30 years, over some time, you might get more comfortable with the fact that, you know, I know what I'm talking about, and then once you get comfortable, it's all about the leadership and our customers getting comfortable with the fact that we can take these automated actions and we're not going to impact the business. People are always concerned about the business being impacted. If I block this port on the firewall, will I shut down an application? And as Michelle said, you know, the enterprise is not in the business of cybersecurity. They're in the business of delivering great healthcare. Okay, so that's what it is all about.
Thank you.
Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Hello, thank you. Thank you all panelists for all your insights. My question is focused on AI, but because we have heard GenAI use case from the employee and also from the organizational viewpoint. Nowadays, GenAI is being used from like someone is maintaining those databases. But in coming days or months, we have like AI PCs are coming on. Then your users will be using those LLMs on their edge. So in terms of that, I have two questions for the Azim and the John. So John, you have been in the MSP business for a while. How do you see those AI on edge will impact your business? And for the Fortinet perspective, how you guys are using or including implementing those solutions like a use case in terms of AI on edge? Thank you.
I just bought my Apple phone 16, and it has Apple Intelligence on it, and everything's on the run. To be honest with you, we don't know where it's going. Okay. We don't know what the solution is, and so we're just constantly learning as to what this is all about. You know, I'm very excited about my phone, you know, and I'm going to I pre-ordered my Apple phone. And I was so interested in this Apple Intelligence, and I don't know what it's going to do, okay? But all we can do is be vigilant and know that it's a risk, it's a threat, and we've got to figure out, we don't know what the hackers are going to do with it, you know? Are they going to get into my phone? Are they going to be able to see my data? You know, all that fun stuff. It's very much an unknown at this time, okay? And maybe Fortinet is going to come up with a great solution that's going to protect everything on my iPhone. I don't know, but I'll let Azim talk about that.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very interesting question, and I'm glad John said it, because I would have said it. We don't know where it's going to go, right? And that's the scary part for all of us, I think. But I think someone else mentioned it on this panel that, you know, the bad guys are using these tools, and the good guys are using these tools. The difference being is the mindset, right? We're still thinking about, we have to be correct 100% of the time. So how do we protect and defend against these threats? Whereas the attackers, they only need to be right once, right? And it's a game of numbers for them, right? And their mindset is different. It's not about, you know, the roadblocks that we put up. It's how to bypass those roadblocks, how to leverage vulnerabilities in multiple systems to evade, right? So that being said, it is still a learning game. It's still in its infancy. But we are leveraging AI into our tools, whether that's within FortiGuard Labs to, you know, detect these anomalous threats, whether we're implementing it into our centralized reporting, logging engines so that we can automate and really expedite, you know, the creation of the tickets, passing on to different teams, et cetera, sharing that information. We're actually leveraging Gen AI right now into our SD-WAN and our SASE portfolio as well. So in all honesty, I don't know where it's going to go, but it's an interesting ride. I will say that.
I think this gentleman has a malicious use case in mind. Do you want to share some ideas? Or? No, but sorry, I just want to jump on this one. This is a very interesting case because it comes down to how data is incepted or is generated in many ways. And we tend to forget that in many ways. I mean, we look into the hardware, we look into all these systems and software stack, et cetera. But I think there's no technology yet that exists there to really somehow control natively or by design in the hardware as well what's happening to the data, right? There's no framework that exists about that today. And that's something that is always bothering me because we have those technologies and we have those billions of semiconductors, of transistors, sorry, in those semiconductors that gives us powerful compute power, et cetera. And there's no control on that stack. There's no control on that level. However, in organizations, corporate organizations usually look into what's happening to the data. You look into the data flows. You look into what's happening across the networks, right? But what's interesting as a malicious use case, since you brought this up, is, how powerful will be the future botnets? How powerful will be and very, very intense will be the future mesh networks of botnets, I think, relaying attacks through a laptop that has...
And speaking about the attacks, I mean, what I've seen so far, FortiGuard Labs and whatnot, the bad guys are leveraging these tools, Gen AI, whatnot. What I haven't seen yet, and what's, I think, the next evolution, is the actual weaponization of Gen AI. Because the tools actually exist out on the dark web right now. But I haven't seen it in... But I think that's the next evolution, and that's going to be coming, and that will be very interesting.
Hi there. Okay, quick question. So with respect to the conversation today, it was a lot of focus on process, governance, technology, and the impact that AI is having on security resilience. Could you maybe share your insights from a human perspective, a resource perspective, in terms of recommendations for what you think your customers need to be focused on in terms of building their security teams, and with the ability to leverage managed services, where does it make sense to really make those investments for your customers to be able to kind of keep up with the technology and the processes and the tools out there?
I think they need to focus on so leave the MSSPs to do all the operational work, okay? So the incident handling, the responses, the remediation. I think the enterprise needs to get out of the security operations business and focus on the business. So work with the project team. So the business is going to be bringing in AI. So what do you do? What are the processes? What do you do with that? So I think when you look at the stack, the operations is lower here, and you sort of need to hire people who are going to do the upper echelons of working with the business to understand what the business objectives are and how do you secure those. I think at the operational level, my belief is that in 5 years, there will be no security operations done by any enterprise on their own. It will all be done by managed security services providers, and simply because it's going to become so complex, the enterprise is going to get out of the cybersecurity business.
So with that, thank you to all our panelists for sharing their valuable insights. Let's have a round of applause to show our appreciation. So with that, I would like to invite Dharma to the stage, and I'd also like John to kindly present tokens of appreciation to our esteemed panelists for their time and dedication.
Malik, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you everyone for attending, and once again, thank you to our panelists.
All right, thanks everybody. Another round of applause for that esteemed panel tonight, please. As part of the work in putting this forum together, we like feedback, and so I'm going to queue up a slide here with a QR code. We'd love for you guys to take a few minutes just to give us your honest reviews on how today went, and we will draw for some prizes. We have 5 prizes that the audience can win. So give you guys about 3 to 4 minutes to do that. All right, so I think that's enough time for everyone. What we'll do is we'll draw for 5 names, and I'd like to invite Deanne up to the front to award the prizes. Yep, first name. Joe Quinn Lima. Yeah. Elaine Bonini.
You sure?
You won, so you can come up. All right. She does, okay. Danica Russell. Claudia Velazula. Two speakers left.
I'm basically Vanna here.
Yan Yemframov. Nice. And the last winner here, Mark Pala. Mark here.
There, he had to leave. Oh. You got to be here to win, as we used to say. Some people in the room I used to work with. Anyway.
He's not here. Okay. Last winner here, Manish Kumar. Okay. Thanks, everyone. If we can go to the next slide here as well. So these experts and these executives have taken some time to come in and share some insights with us. Please do feel free to connect with them on LinkedIn, stay part of the network. Give you a minute to do that. And we'll move to the final slide where you can connect with Stratagem on LinkedIn, where we've been growing our presence there to share more of the innovation, the events, the road tours that we're doing. Probably the next one with Illumio and Vandervoog, if I said his name correctly there, Sheng. Kindervoog, yeah, thank you. All right, so as we wrap up today, as we saw with the panel discussion and the various observations made, cyber resilience isn't about avoiding every threat. It's about how we respond, adapt, and grow stronger in the face of them. So I hope we all leave here today knowing that with every step we take, we are building a more resilient, more secure world, and that's something worth believing in. So thanks, everyone. Have a great evening.